Back, everyone. It's just another day in the life as a military wife. And I realized that largely on this podcast, it's military wife in my life. And yet I'm usually talking about current events and navigating military life and all that, which are part of my life. And hopefully they're helpful in your life. But I don't always talk about life experiences in general and lifeness. So we're going to do that today. As always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and this is Life of a Military Wife. First things first, I want to address the fact that I'm well aware of the situation that took place in Jordan with 3 service members from the reserves, Army Reserves, losing their lives. And my heart goes out to them and their families. I know it's got to be really hard for them. It was Sergeant William Jerome Rivera's, Charlotte, Georgia, Specialist Kennedy Sanders of Waycross, Georgia, and Specialist Brianna Moffett of Savannah, Georgia. And evidently, other individuals have been injured as well. I don't have specifics on that. This situation is one that is going to be developing, and the response from the United States is going to be in progress. So instead of speculating and going off on that right now, I'm going to let it sit. We're going to let things happen. Supposedly there's going to be a response. And so we're going to give it a hot minute and see what happens before addressing that. But again, my thoughts and prayers are with those families. That is absolutely devastating. And it's just something, it's the message, it's the phone call, it's the visit that none of us want as military. So moving on from that, um, as I was talking about in military life, there's a lot of stuff that goes up and down, whatever. And one of the things is a lot of the things we deal with in our day to day lives can be and sometimes are a little bit more difficult due to the fact that we don't have our friend groups or family or whatever that we've grown up with, and we're constantly moving. And so sometimes we'll find ourselves in these life stages with a lot going on, and we might be new in an area, we may not have friends, we may not, you know where to go and where to turn. And, everyone's got an opinion, and oftentimes those can be helpful and encouraging and great. And then sometimes it's just things you got to let go. And that has happened a lot to me in my life in general. And I'm going to focus in on a specific area. So, parenting, infertility, children, all of that sort of stuff, it's hard, especially when you don't have the family group there, people to bounce ideas off with. You're not in the situation you grew up with. So when we had our first kid, we were far away from family and there were struggles. I, again, have my degree in family life science. And so I was well aware that postpartum is a thing. And, but somehow in the back of my head, I had myself convinced that, oh, it's a thing, but it's not that big of a deal. Well, yeah, for some people, and for some people it is. And mine was a big deal. And it took quite a bit of love and patience from my husband and support from family long distance to figure out, and support from care professionals, that one of the best ways for me to treat my postpartum is to get out, to socialize, to be around people. Being at home with the baby by myself for hours and hours at a time only made my postpartum worse. And so getting out, socializing, being around people actually helps mitigate the severity of my postpartum depression. And that's not an uncommon response. There are other people who having people around actually makes their postpartum worse. Some people need medication with their postpartum. Some people have little to no postpartum at all. And I think there's a lot of grace we need to give each other with this. Also, with infertility. So I'll get back to the we'll finish up this postpartum and then I'll get to the infertility stuff. But I have recently I heard about a situation with a mom getting a lot of flack online because she participated in a beauty contest not long after having a baby. Everyone's like, she needs to be at home and she needs to be resting. And this is setting a bad example for other new moms that feel like they have to be out and doing things and blah, 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 blah. And she should be bonding with her baby. You know what? Her baby was there with her, and that's what she felt like she needed to do. So you get off her back. Like, baby's being taken care of. She's healthy and happy. If everyone's healthy and happy, it ain't none of your business. Like, don't just let it go. And that got me thinking because like I personally, I'm back at church within a week or two of having a baby because I love that sense of community. I need that sense of fellowship and strength and support that I get from attending church. So I'm back at church like right away. I know other people who don't come back to church after having a baby. Their spouse and older kids will, but they'll stay at home with baby for a month or 2 months or whatever they need. And that's perfectly fine too. And it's just it's different people need different things. And you know what? Some people it's better for them to get out of the house. I feel like making it a pressure, like you have to stay home with your baby, you have to snuggle your baby, you have to do this, you have to do that. What if that's not what's best for that new wife, that new spouse, that new mom? Sorry. And so when we're in these situations and these military experiences, and we're dealing with individuals who are different than us, who are unique human beings unto themselves, giving advice to them is great, but expecting them to have to do it your way is ridiculous. Um, we need these communities. We need to build these communities. We need to throw our arms around each other and support each other and uplift each other. We're not around our families. Oftentimes, we are thrown into these situations. We moved to a brand new duty station just prior to me having one of our children. And I knew next to no one. I was like 7 months pregnant or something of the like. And it was really hard to quickly establish a sense of community, to find someone we trusted our older kids with when we went into the hospital to have that kid. It was just difficult. And so finding a church community helps us, and I've mentioned that before, expedite that process of finding trusted individuals at duty stations whom we can rely on. But SFRG, like family readiness, is a general good solution. Maybe it's at the library, maybe it's MOPS, but finding that community is huge and important. And that's where it comes into the other aspect. A lot of military families, when I first got in, had children. I still think the majority of military families have children, but more and more it's becoming common for couples to not have children. Now, sometimes it's a choice, it's a decision they've made, and you know what? That's fine. It's important to be kind and understanding about what the decisions they've made. And you know what? I don't need to know all your business. If you're not feeling ready, if there's something going on, maybe they don't feel comfortable talking about it yet. And it's just important to be that safe space for them. Other times, it's they've gone through a whole lot of infertility issues. It's not that they don't want kids, they've tried everything they can. And like I've mentioned previously in other episodes, the military does not cover a lot of infertility treatments and stuff. So if they want to do that, it can be very, very costly. And adoption is costly and tricky. Foster can be complicated, fostering kids. And so it may be that they want children, but they can't have children for some reason. And so again, not making those assumptions, not and just being supportive of them. They also might be going through miscarriages. I've personally had miscarriages. I've known other military spouses who've had miscarriages, and we kind of had to be a buddy system and encourage each other through those hard times. And there might be situations. I'm personally one of those people. When I have a miscarriage, I don't tell anyone. 99% of the time, I don't even tell family. Um, the only person who genuinely knows all the miscarriages I've had is my husband. That's it, period. Well, okay, and my gynecologist, but that's it. Like doctor, husband, that's it. I've told my mother-in-law most of the time. My mom knew most of them, but it's not something I talk about. I don't like talking about it. I don't really want to talk to anyone about it. And that's just how I've always been about it. But there are other people who do want to talk about it. They do want support. They do want encouragement. It really hits them differently. And then that's okay. And it's important to know what you need. I had a friend who later found out that I had had a miscarriage and I never told her. And she was really hurt. And it took a lot for me to explain to her my reasoning for just keeping that very private. It's not that I don't want people to know that I've had miscarriages. If I'm talking to somebody who is going through that, and they're needing some comfort and they're needing some empathy, I will sometimes talk about it in those specific circumstances, but it's not something I broadcast. I just don't really want, when I'm going through it, I just don't. I want to be left alone. And so people are going to have opinions on how you should handle all of these things and how you should say all of these things. And then once you have babies, it gets even more complicated. Heck, I've even heard people say this stuff about their dogs. Like, you should only do this for your dog and only feed your dog this. Like, everyone's got opinions about everything. And the thing I had to learn is there's a million self help books, there's a million parenting books, there's a million books on breastfeeding and potty training, and you should cloth diaper, you should do this, you should do that, you should pump, you should take these vitamins, don't eat this, don't eat that. Good golly, you know what? Figure out what works for you and stick with it. As long as you are healthy and happy, as long as babies are healthy, as long as kids are healthy, as long as everyone's needs are being met, you're never going to make everyone happy. There's a vlogger that I really enjoy, and she was talking about a toile de joie. It's these fabrics from hundreds of years ago that tell stories, and one of them is a story about a father and a son going to market with their donkey. And the moral of the story is you can't please everyone. But basically, they're going down the road and they get made fun of by the first group of people they pass because they've got a donkey and they're not riding the donkey. They're like, "What? Why aren't you riding your donkey? You're walking, you're going so far. You could use this transportation you have. You're so dumb." And so they both climb on the donkey's back. Well, the next group of people they see um berate them for, "Oh, how unfair to that poor donkey. You're both on its back. That's just too much weight. You're so cruel and mean and unkind to this donkey." And so the old man gets off and he's like, "Fine, let's not be mean to the donkey." And he gets off, and before they get too far, there's another group of people, and those people start berating the son because he's riding the donkey and his dad is walking, and how unkind you are. Why don't you let your father ride? And so I might be getting the order mixed up of, but then like at one point they're carrying the donkey, and then finally they go back to just walking with the donkey because they realize everyone's got an opinion. And you know what? Just that doesn't mean they're right. Walking by their donkey was perfectly acceptable. And so just knowing that there is going to be a lot in military life. People are going to tell you, "Oh, you need to handle deployment this way. Oh, you need to handle finding a school this way. Oh, you need to do X, Y, and Z. And I will even give my opinion on this podcast on different ways to approach different aspects of military life and life in general. And when I'm coming with facts and research, I try to let you know this is what research says. This is what best practices and principles, according to the degree and the expertise and study and background I have, say. Does that mean it's a one size fit all? No. Does that mean we know everything? No. But are these good practices and principles that might be helpful to you? Yes. Do you have to be perfect at them right away? No. I'm not perfect. I have a degree in family life. Do I have a perfect family? Heavens no. We're human. We are so human. I really find it funny because I'll tell people my degree and they're like, "Oh, you must know all this stuff." I'm like, "Dude, I got my degree and I thought I was ready to be a parent, and then I met my kids and realized, oh, Hannah, I have book knowledge, but I did not have hands-on practical experience." And you know what? I've got over a decade now of hands-on practical experience of parenting. Do I still know everything? Heck no. My kids are constantly going into new stages and I'm having to learn stuff. I'm having to go back to the textbooks and go back to the research and figure things out. And we're learning new things all the time. And that's fine. So it's not a one size fits all on how to teach your kid how to walk. It's not a one size fits all on where to send your kid to school. It's not a one size fits all on how to handle loss or deployments or separation or potty training or, uh, you know, disgruntled teenagers who don't want to move away from their friends when you PCS, or how to handle technology in the home and social media and teach your children how to handle that stuff. How to teach your kid to drive. We have not approached that one yet, but I just know it's going to be a doozy. Talking to your kids about puberty. Every child is different. Every family is different. There are practices and principles and research that generally are helpful. But is it going to look the same for everyone? Nope. So let's just be kind to each other. Let's be patient. Let's build this sisterhood of military spouses that is uplifting and encouraging. That we find these new military spouses, these young moms, these newlyweds who this is their first duty station and they don't have kids yet and they're missing their moms, and let's build those friendships and be those mentors and reach out. And when we're struggling, let's have the courage to reach out and find help and support that we need. Let's have the courage to take a stand and do what's best for us, even if it's unpopular. I was given so much. I still have been given so much, for lack of a better term, crap about bottle feeding my children. And you know what? It's not that I didn't want to breastfeed. It didn't work for me. I tried. I'd worked with lactation consultants. I've done everything I can. And for reasons, medical reasons, that I'm not going to openly divulge because they're medical reasons and they're personal, I'm never going to be able to fully breastfeed my children, and that is okay. It took a lot for me to come to terms with that because I felt like I was a bad mother for not being able to breastfeed my kids. You know what? I'm over that now. My kids are healthy, they're fed, they're fine. Took a while for us to find a formula that worked for my kids because, oh my goodness, acid reflux is a thing. And it's something not everyone talks about, but let's just be open about that some. Maybe your kid isn't going to have acid reflux. Mine does. Maybe your kid's going to have colic. Mine doesn't. Maybe your kid has whatever. Let's just be supportive. Our families are not always with us when we're military. Sometimes our families are thousands of miles away. And we can't always have our mom or our sister or our auntie or our best friend from high school. So let's be that for each other. So that's a challenge I want to throw out to all y'all, military or not. I know not all my listeners are military. Be a mentor. Be that friend. Be that someone to someone else. And I have found that when I am reaching out and being supportive and trying to help and uplift the other spouses around me or the other people in my congregation, I have been led to people who can help and then uplift and mentor me. And it's really amazing that when we step outside of ourselves a little bit, which I know some of y'all are introverts. I'm personally aggressively social, according to my husband. But when we step outside ourselves and we are that friend that we want to find, it's easier to find that friend we need for ourselves. So be the friend you want to find. That's my encouragement for y'all this week. So that's where we're going to be at. Um, I hope you're seeing kind of a rhythm with everything. 5th week episodes, which is what this week is, are going to be a little different than the normal rotation. But just know that um, reviews, research, life hacks, those sorts of things are going to be 1st and 3rd week episodes, and 2nd and 4th are going to be current events and that sort of stuff. So, love y'all. Hope all is going well. Keep comments and suggestions coming, and lots of good stuff coming up. I feel like this year is already going way too fast. I cannot believe January is nearly over. I still don't feel ready for this year. So buckle up. This is going to be a fun one. And as always, I'm your host, Sam Wolf, and you're listening to Life of a Military Wife.